Okay, so here is the Matt's Wild Currant Tomato. Let me see, what is this? Matt's Wild Cherry Tomato. So it's not really a cherry tomato. These are very tiny. These are more or less currant tomatoes. Pick one for you. I'm actually going to pick more, but when you pick these off, you really either want to take off the whole brack, is providing they're all red, or twist the tomato when it comes off, because they peel just like the Everglade tomato does when you peel them off. When you go to pull it off, boom, it peels. But that's about the size of it. I'll pick up a few more off of this plant. Basically, it's a regular leaf tomato plant. This plant tends to get purpling in the stems. Some people say that purpling in the stems is it's a bad sign of phosphorus deficiency, or too much of this or too much of that. And yeah, that is true in some cases, but some varieties of tomatoes will exhibit some purpling in their stems and their leaves, and you'll notice that. Now I have a variety here, which is the Cosmic Eclipse, and this is a very interesting type tomato, and it does a lot. It grows a lot with the purpling, so you will see a lot of deep purpling in that stem. So some varieties will show some purpling. Now this one shows some purpling. It grows pretty healthy. I'm not really having any problems with it. It's not too blighty, and it's generally growing pretty good, but it is beginning to show signs of blight, and it's getting towards that time of the season where it's really going to have to start putting out its fruit to basically beat the blight. So I don't know if it will or it won't. I really don't know what this plant is going to do. But nevertheless, it is doing pretty good. Now this plant would have gotten a lot bigger. It just went through a really, really hard season this year. The heat cycle was really tough on it. So it's really not as big as I expected. I expect this to get a lot bigger. But it might pick up as the season progresses onwards and the temperatures start cooling down and we don't keep getting that much rain. I mean, we've been getting so much rain, it's been washing the tomato plant and soil completely clean of all the nutrients I put in it. So that ain't helping it. But nevertheless, as you can see, it's still making quite a bit of tomatoes. Now, I do plan to get a pretty good harvest off of this, just not as good as I was expecting. I was actually expecting maybe a 5-gallon pail full of just these tomatoes by itself, but I don't think I'm going to be getting nearly that much. Am I over-expecting? Nah, not with the amount of energy I put into growing it and maintaining the plant. I figured I would do a little better than my Everglade tomato, which easily gives me a 5-gallon to 2 or 3 5-gallon pails of tomatoes every year. I expected to at least get that much from this one plant. I figured it'd grow bigger, but it's kind of struggling a little bit, but I think it's going to start bouncing back. I am going to do some pruning on it. And what else about this tomato? Again, it's a regular leaf style. It's not a potato leaf. A little bit of purpling in the stems. These are more or less like large currant tomatoes, but they're pretty much currant tomatoes. I really wouldn't call these cherry tomatoes. And it's considered a wild variety of tomato as opposed to a domesticated variety or an heirloom of some type, because this tomato was brought up from Mexico. And I'll get into a little bit more about that once we get to the table. I'll just show you quickly what it is, and then we'll taste test it, give it a bricks, and then we'll see where we stand with it. So just wanted to give you a look at it from here, what you can see, and like the typical fruit bract that it's going to make, which will probably put anywhere between, I would say, 6 to 12 fruits on one bract. You will get them that big. This one's not putting out that many of them per bract. I think the average is, what do we got there? 2, 4, 6, 7. But the average is about 8. I'm seeing on there. So you're getting about 8 fruits per bract. But I've seen images of these online where it actually puts out a little bit more than that. You can see 10, 12 if the plant is really growing healthy and good. You'll see that many. But this is about what you're going to see on average, like that. So let's pick some of these and bring them to the table and give it a taste test. Okay, so we're at the taste test part of this review on Matt's Wild Cherry Tomato. So what I went on the internet and found out about this tomato, it came from Hidalgo, Mexico, and it was brought in from a friend of Matt Leibman. And that's about all I know about it. I don't really know that much else other than that it's considered a wild tomato, and that wild variety is actually called Solanum lycopersicum variant Cerasiforme. So I don't really know that much about it other than it's a variant strain. How exactly do they know what strain, how to strain that out? I don't know. But here's a look at the tomato. And you can see it looks, let me zoom you back out. And you can see it looks very much like an Everglade tomato, but they're a little bigger in nature. They tend to be a little bit more red in nature. They're not as translucent like with Everglade tomatoes. They tend to be very veiny, and the skin seems to be like translucent a little bit, whereas these aren't. These are very red, like a little miniature cherry tomato. Now, they call it a cherry tomato. In my reference, this wouldn't be a cherry tomato. This is actually a currant tomato. But because they're a little bigger than a currant tomato, they're not quite currant size, they're a little bigger, which is a little odd for these kind of tomatoes. I guess you could get away with calling them mini cherry tomatoes, but they're a little bigger than what the Everglade tomato gets to be. Now I cut one in half, and that's what the inside looks like. It's a bi-chambered tomato. It very much looks the same as, I don't know if you can see that or what. It looks very much like the inside of an Everglade tomato or any other currant tomato. I have read that some people don't even consider these small tomatoes like this or any of the currant tomatoes a tomato variety. The Pimpinifolium they consider to be, in general, another plant of some kind, but I totally disagree with that. I definitely believe that these are tomatoes and that there ain't no other way to slice and dice it. It's a tomato. They call it a berry of some type, but I don't agree with that philosophy. So that's about all I know about it. What else do I have here? It was by Leibman. That's who brought this tomato to the United States from Mexico. And it is an indeterminate tomato. And that's it here. I'll show it to you on the bract. Generally, this is what it's going to look like on the bract. You're going to get little stringers like this with about 2, 4, 6 to 8, maybe 10 you might see on the bract, but that's about what you'll get. And let's give it a bite. The skins are a little bit of a pain in the neck. I have to spit these out. I can't do these reviews because they're really small and they do want to get stuck in your mouth. So let me try a whole one. They got an interesting flavor. There's something, it's got like a soily type taste, maybe earthy tone to it. You might want to use that terminology. They're a little different. They don't quite taste like the Everglade tomato. They do have their own flavor. There's some kind of an earthy tone to it. It doesn't taste bad. It's just there is a little bit of an earthy tone. The skins are kind of tough on this. I'm going to tell you that straight out. They're a little bit tough. You're going to pop the berry, get the inside what you want out, chew the skin a little bit, and spit it out. I mean, you could probably make a good sauce with it. It's just you're going to have to strain those skins out because they are a little tough and they're a little bit annoying when you're trying to, you're eating, maybe somebody asks you a question you can't answer, But we'll do a bricks on it. Now, unfortunately, I got to get the seeds in here. I hope that doesn't interfere with it, but I don't know how else to get the juice out of it. It's telling me about 7 with the seeds on it. Let me see if I can pull the seeds off it. You get a different reading. Same thing. Got the seeds off. I'm still getting the same reading. Maybe a little higher. It's like maybe 7 1/4, slightly over. So the reason why I'm showing you the bricks meter is that's going to tell you how much sugar and or minerals are in there. The higher the mineral and sugar content, the more it's going to show up in this meter. This meter is just, what it does is it's a refractometer, and it's just sensing the particles that are inside of the liquid. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a sweeter tomato. It just means there's more of something inside that tomato juice that's going to show up on that meter. Now, this was calibrated to distilled water, so there's absolutely nothing in it, which was distilled water. I set it at absolute 0. So this now is reading 7, so that whatever it is, it's going to be whatever's in this tomato. So it's not all necessarily sugar. A lot of people use this to gauge the sugar level. Yes, maybe 90% of that number, that 7 number, is going to be a sugar rating on it. But there's going to be, 7, 10%, maybe 15%. That's going to be other stuff inside that tomato, including the minerals in it that are going to raise that number a little. How do I know that? Because I took tap water and put tap water on that meter, and I was getting a small reading off it. So that tells me, well, there's no sugar in tap water, but that's telling me that it's picking up the mineral content in the water. So it is going to sense some other measurements of something other than sugar. So a lot of people use it for sugar, but the highest measurement in that number is going to be sugar. So it's telling me it's roughly 7, so it's probably a good indicator it's very high in sugar. And they are quite sweet. Let me try to describe the flavor. These seeds get all over the place too, by the way. Like I said, the flavor tastes good. It's got a nice tangy part. It's got a nice balance of tangy, maybe a little bit high on the tangy side. The sweet side is pretty good, but more tangy than sweet. Let me grab one more sweet one more fully ripened one. Hopefully I can get a good reading from that. Yeah, you're going to have to spit those skins out because they're just annoying to play around with. Just put a whole handful in your mouth, chew them up a little bit, and just spit the whole skin out. This would be really good for juicing, by the way. You want to juice out all that seed and just drink it like a glass? That would probably be really good. I might try that if I get enough of these. As far as the flavor goes, tangy I would say is probably going to be like 35% on the tangy. The sweetness I'm going to say about 30 because it was a little higher on the tangy part than the sweetness. But yet there was a good enough amount of sweetness on the riper ones. So I'm going to go with the 30 on the sweet, 35. It was a little more tangy than normal. So these numbers are not guaranteed in concrete and stone. I'm just trying to give you an idea in ratio from tangy to sweet. You got to expect this is going to be a little bit more tangier than it is sweet. That's why I'm doing that. Some people get confused when I say that, and you got to understand. I got to try to describe this effect to you somehow. Would I grow this tomato again? Absolutely, but I'm not going to go out of my way to grow it because I got Everglade tomatoes that grow just as good as these. And I don't even have to plant those things. And I get 5-gallon buckets full of them. So I'm not going to go out of my way with these, but for just the nostalgia purpose of it. But because of a different variety, I'm going to keep growing it and maybe cross this variety over with some of the other varieties. It is a good tomato to grow. I do like it. My tomatoes didn't do that good this year because of the intense punishment it took from that heat wave we got. And they're just starting to bounce back now a little bit, but we're already mid-August, so the sun is already starting to go back. So they're all kind of, they're getting thinner at the top, and they're spreading out, and they're not at their prime anymore. So hopefully I'll get some more tomatoes out of it. But I definitely would give it a grow if you're interested in growing a different, something other than a Lycopersicum tomato. You want to grow something different. Yeah, give these a try. This is definitely worth a try, and you might be able to cross these over with some of the other tomatoes. All right, so that was your tomato review for Matt's Wild Cherry Tomato. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.